bring the energy, he'll do the rest. Martinez Company, powered by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game.
You're going to hear it right here.
The show starts now.
And, wow, talking about my voice crackling. Good morning, everyone. I apologize here as my voice started cracking a little bit this morning. Thanks to this cold, kind of dampish weather, unfortunately, does a thing down here in Florida to your vocal cords, which absolutely kind of stinks. But, you know, that's why they make coffee and tea and all kinds of different stuff. Therefore, at least the voice can kind of clear up. So I will try my best not to clear my throat. Go ahead and hit the mute on the mic. Therefore, at least you guys, as you listen in, it won't be one of those things where you'll hear me clear my throat. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in to Martinez Company here live on the Coastal Sports Network. Of course, brought to you by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. Thank you for following us on the socials on Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, Kicks. Oh, Lord, where else? Rumble. And obviously over on X, which is important for us as well, and over even on Instagram. So thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it. Don't forget, you can call or text the show at 727-858-6650. 727-858-6650. I've got to make a mental note for myself to put the music back in as I've been getting other stuff ready. As you guys heard this morning when Pete just went off the air, I'll repeat it again here up in the next hour. The merchandise store is slowly coming together. So you guys will be able to purchase t-shirts, hats, hoodies, soon leggings for the ladies, because men, we do not wear leggings. You know, I know we have different types of pants we can wear, but from what I understand, I don't believe we do. But also some other stuff. So that should be coming up hopefully by week's end, if not the beginning of next week. But I will post it up on the social medias. Therefore, you guys can see exactly what we're doing. Also, City Garage Motorsports. Of course, we are powered by our great partnership over at City Garage Motorsports, and I do have some breaking news from them as well. I'll mention that here momentarily as they're getting ready for the 2025 ARCA Menard Series in NASCAR. But their items will be up there as well. So if you guys want to support the race team, you can do it right through SR1029thegame.com. So thank you all. Was off for a couple of days. I am back. So I'm here happily to join with everyone here on the airwaves, and possibly maybe tomorrow, I have some other news as well. It will probably be on the Pete Shepard Show because I am off tomorrow and then back on Wednesday. Following me this afternoon will be the Drive with Q. Yes, my hermano, Rich Quinones, who is in the deep freeze state of the Jersey Shore up there in New Jersey. Cold, but nonetheless, he is doing great work outside today, unfortunately, as he covers boxing, but sometimes you have to get the boxing angle. As some of these guys, when they train, they like to go out in the cold elements because they love it. So he is doing some stuff outside today. Then hopefully he'll go back inside, get warmed up a little bit, and then he should be back on this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. I'll be joining him there as the executive producer and co-host. And then Jay, B's World, will be back tonight as well. That is from 6 to 7:30 p.m., sometimes a little after 6, as my hermano usually gets on a roll. When he does, I just let him go, and then we just transition right over into Jay's show. So B's World will be on from 6 to 7:30, and then closing out tonight will be Talking Hoops with Coach Johnson, Coach Mack, and Doc Riley. They were off last week. They had to postpone. Doc was caught up in a meeting, so he had to make sure, and I tried to bail him out as much as I possibly could, but unfortunately, I couldn't do but so much. But they should be back again tonight, so they'll be talking about the stuff that goes on in the NBA. More importantly, kind of the things that are not happening for my 76ers, and I don't understand for the life of me what the deal is. They're 15 and forget about it for the season. As we are now rolling into January, anybody knows that this team in the NBA, if you don't start getting hot, your playoff chances could slowly but surely start going away rather quickly. So hopefully it's not the case, but the Sixers right now are not looking too good. And for those who hadn't missed it, apparently they decided, and we saw this with the Phillies, and I kind of don't understand either, as we'll get into some other lineup updates as well. But the one thing I don't understand is that the Phillies we had seen this years ago when Mayor Street was the mayor at the time. And the Phillies were going through that they wanted to try and move into Center City. Now, the place, and it's hard. For those who've never lived in the city of Philadelphia, great city, regardless of whatever people say, absolutely fantastic city. But there's only so many places, even if you could put a stadium out there in Center City. The problem is, where would you be able to put it? And when the Phillies attempted the first time, it was one of the warehouses that I believe now had been turned into an apartment type style home complex. But if the Phillies wanted to do so, it was going to take about 5 years or so to even complete the project. Not even to think about the traffic that would have been on the Schuylkill Expressway. At the time, 676 didn't have the underpass complete. You still had to go through Center City when you got off the Ben Franklin Bridge. But nonetheless, the Sixers were attempting to be down there where the gallery was. And apparently the mayor had approved, and she went way out of her way to be able to make it happen. And then the Sixers decided, you know what? We're just going to stay in South Philly. Apparently Comcast and the Flyers are going to work with them and come up with a new stadium. I myself, I'm just going to tell you personally, when I left from Philly, when what started out as the First Union Center, and a lot of people like to call it the FU Center back in the day. And then it was bought out, or Core States, then bought out by First Union when the First Union had purchased Core States Bank. Then it became the FU Center. And then obviously the First Union got bought out by Wells Fargo as everybody kind of merged together. And it's been the Wells ever since. Now, even though they made upgrades, to me personally, and I know I'm going back some years, so it's completely different to what we see now, there wasn't that, like the Spectrum to me, because it was nostalgic, the Spectrum made a lot of sense the way it was made. Now, we're going back to early 60s, 70s. Don't get me wrong. I get it. Those are things that we had to do when building a venue. But then you made the Spectrum, everybody loved it. And then you moved on and you went to the Wells. And to me, personally, it didn't have, like, when you went there, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else. When you went to the Wells originally, it just wasn't that, like, it didn't have that same hold like the Spectrum did, if that makes a lot of sense for my Philly fans that are out there. The same way, like the Vet, when the link came around, everybody was hoping that Veterans Stadium was going to keep the name and just transfer over across the street and become Veterans Stadium where Lincoln Financial Field is. And then when Lincoln Financial Field, because they sold the naming rights, they were like, really? This is what we're doing? But now everybody's been calling it for Link for many years since the existence of the stadium. And then, of course, the other part was, well, if they're going to use it at the Eagle Stadium, maybe the Phillies would pick it up. Well, that didn't happen either, because then it was the naming rights were sold to Citizen Bank Park. And a lot of folks said, no, this is called CBD, for those who don't know. Joey B says, and I see Gaspon Guy also texting as well. Joey B says, good morning, Angel. Snow in Tampa? No snow, Joey B, in Tampa, but there was ice. Some of the ice that came down in the form of sleet, not like, big parts of the ice, but form of sleet that came down in parts here, where normally, as I explained this morning, normally when we have green on the radar, obviously it shows that it's rain, but then we have marks where it's yellow, which normally that means we've got heavy thunderstorms in the area, especially when it's like red. Then those are strong to severe thunderstorms. But there was parts just north of where we are, and even to the Tampa region, I-4 and 75, where there were pockets of sleet that were coming down because it is cold here in Florida. Right now, it's currently 39 degrees. This morning, during the overnight hours, is at 34. And on Saturday, we could be looking at from 28 to 27 during the overnight. And then come Sunday, it turns into 70 degrees. So absolutely nuts around here. Gasm Guy says, Angel, I'm super excited about the merchandise. The network is about to launch. I cannot wait. I am too. It's a lot of work to put together GBG. And for those who missed it, I mentioned it this morning too, he's talking about the merchandise. In case you guys missed it, it's still up there available on the audio replay. GPG had his son with him. And if you guys have missed it, the greatest conversation of the youngest fan that has ever called into the network, which I gave him now the nickname Little Pump. I called him Gas Pump Guy Jr. on the phone, but now he's been known as Little Pump here on the network. And who knows, maybe Little Pump will have a t-shirt out there for himself. So you never know. Joey B says, the Spectrum equaled one of the most famous arenas of its time. A shame they didn't keep it and renovate, try to keep the charm. Madison Square Garden renovation was done correctly for the most part. And I would agree, Joey B. I would agree. MSG figured out how to keep it around because there was word, and it would have been the same way for Manhattan. I mean, the same exact way. I mean, you try to put a stadium down there. Lord knows, as Donald Trump has made building after building, even renovating some of the older buildings, it's always anything you do in Manhattan is absolutely crazy. When you really think about it, the amount of work, the same thing in Philly. The Spectrum, everybody loved it. It came to the point where when they went to go sell the original seats, people were going to try to remove the current ones before they got removed so they could take it with them. And some folks got away with it. Don't ask me how, but they did. And at the very end, did it matter? I don't think so for a lot of folks. All they cared about was that they wanted to take a piece of history from the Spectrum with them. And yes, if I would have had the opportunity of grabbing 2 seats, I would have done so. It seems, and I know people probably make the argument like, that's just dumb. Maybe it's just a guy thing. And maybe it is. I think for people who love sports and somewhere, even Detroit back in the day, their old Coliseum, it's the same exact way. You want to keep a piece of that history from beforehand. Now, I wouldn't take a brick, and it seems kind of silly, right? But seats, if at one point you can set up your house the way you want it, or, you're able to have a studio or something else and you put that there, it's a piece of history. So that's kind of what I wanted, but I would have never gotten to that point. Rick says, good morning, Rick. FYI, it was not me who put $1.3 million on KC to win over Buffalo. No, it wasn't, but somebody did, and somebody will. I'm pretty sure, but it was listen. I'll get into that a little bit later on because that's going to be. Pete mentioned if people don't like dynasties, are they tired of dynasties? Me personally, and I don't want to lose track of what I was mentioning earlier as well. To a certain extent, I don't mind dynasties because in order to be the best, it's always said you have to what? Beat the best. And when the Eagles had beat the Patriots, finally, it broke up that dynasty and it started kind of like the windfall. I'm not going to say the downfall, but the windfall when it came to the Patriots. But nonetheless, now the Patriots, of course, are going back to the right direction. Mike Vrabel, Josh Daniels, just picked up from Detroit. I mean, Detroit, listen, not for nothing. Everybody knows. We knew it back in 2017. And we also knew it the first time when Nick Sirianni had taken the Eagles to the Super Bowl against Kansas City and Arizona. It was one of those things that we know what ended up happening was when your team starts getting hot, other teams will start looking at the coordinators. No different than the NHL, no different than Major League Soccer. When you have a team that you really have great coordinators, great staff, they start picking them apart. Detroit, I didn't see it coming as far as the Commanders going in there and really taking it to them. Jared Goff has been in conversations now of, is he the quarterback of the future? And I'm quite sure I'm going to get into it tonight with Beef, so I won't get into it too much now, but is he still... The question it's going to come down to was, did LA do the right thing? Obviously with Matthew Stafford being there and winning a Super Bowl with the Rams, obviously being eliminated as well this year, but it seemed to be a better fit. And then at one point, people were hoping it was going to be the Rams and the Lions so that when Matthew Stafford came back, he would kind of end the Lions season, but the Commanders went into town. And you guys have heard my hermano, Rich Q, talk about that he had picked the Commanders to win a division early on, even before the season kicked off, and also had mentioned that he had stated that they would make the playoffs, and obviously they did. Now, you're playing Philly, as I mentioned this morning, and Chara's mom had chimed in, and she said, what happened to Angel, and what did you do with him? Listen, the only reason why I have been just the way I've been with the Eagles this season is because we've seen this story and this film before, as I say to my wife all the time. We've seen this before. The worst part about this is you are now in the mix of being one of 4 teams, and eventually is going to be one of 2 to get to the Super Bowl. it's always that game. It's like, we've seen it with the Phillies. Phillies make it to the NLCS. 2008, 2007, they come up short. 2008, they end up going in. 2009, they make it to the NLCS, make it back to the World Series. Yankees, end of story. Take care of that season. But we've seen it before. When your team is there, they're on the precipice, and you're just waiting, and you want to celebrate, and you want to do all these things because you know for a fact it's like, man, we are there. We are that close from actually being able to pull this off. And then what happens? Here comes the wind and takes away the sail, and that's it for the rest of the remainder of the season. It absolutely stinks. It absolutely sucks. I know I harped upon a lot when it came to it last season, in the beginning part of this season, because I'm hoping that Nick Sirianni learned a lot from himself of what not to do wrong and keep the momentum going the way it's going for the Eagles. Right now, looking at last week's game, do I feel good and am I excited about playing the Commanders? Yes. But let's not forget, not too long ago, the Commanders end up taking care of the Eagles. Now, again, it's the playoffs. It could be a whole different story. But between myself and my hermano, Rich Q, we had both said if the Commanders beat the Lions, the Commanders could make their destiny and get their ways back to the Super Bowl. Now, by all means, Eagles fans, please do not throw any kind of hatred or anything else like that. I'm just giving you a little bit of facts. At the same time, I believe that Nick Sirianni will finally have the right gameplay in place in a well-balanced run-pass offense in order to make this happen. The defense right now is playing stellar. Even with the injuries that the Eagles have had, the next man mentality on the defensive side has definitely been there. On the offense, the struggle has been Jake Elliott, which we would have never thought in a million years. We would be saying that Jake Elliott is not, Jake State Farm Elliott for the most part. And I don't know what it is with kickers that once they get into their own heads, that they can't just kick the ball in between the uprights. Now, of course, it's easy for me to say because I'm speaking behind a microphone. I'm not the kicker. But they get into this whole thing where they just can't, for whatever odd reason, launch that ball directly in between the uprights. And this has been the first season that we've seen it with Jake Elliott. And towards the end of last year, we saw it, but it might have been one or two, not as much as we've seen this year. Then you look at Sunday's game from last week, and if it came down to a field goal, as my wife and I were talking about it, there was no way the Eagles were going to win that one if it came down to field goals, because even the extra point he missed, and that's much closer than field goal attempts. It's just sometimes you get into this crazy funk. We see it with Major League All-Stars, same exact way, where they just get into this funk and they can't shake it out. And then just 1 minute to the next, all of a sudden, just, skies open up, blue skies, sunshine, and bam, they're back off to the races. So we're hoping that this Sunday, the same exact way, we don't have to rely upon the game of inches, which we do every single week, don't get me wrong, but we just hope that we don't have to depend on Jake Elliott to win it by a field goal. Or if that's the case, just a couple years ago when he made that 55-yarder home opener that launched us into a whole different stratosphere, maybe that'll be the case. Nonetheless, it's not going to be easy against the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, the hot, young rookie quarterback, is playing like a seasoned veteran. And he has his team loose. When your team is having fun, you've heard this from many coaches before. Andy Reid, he talks about it with Kansas City, although Kansas City, I'm just not sold that they should be going to the AFC Championship game. Maybe, finally, Buffalo gets back to the Super Bowl. I don't know, I'm just saying. Maybe so. But Kansas City's had a lot of calls go their way. A lot. And a lot of times you try not to agree with a lot of people, but listen, it's out there. People take video and they break it down and they see it. I mean, you had Patrick Mahomes who deliberately flopped on the sideline trying to get an extra call. Then there was a couple calls. Yes, they picked the flags back up. I understand it. It looked like one was helmet to helmet as far as the face mask, but then it was picked up when they noticed that obviously the defensive lineman ended up hitting Patrick Mahomes just to the left of his shoulder, where it looked like obviously they had, banged helmets, but only come to find out that it wasn't the case. But we've heard Andy Reid. We've heard so many coaches before saying, if your team is not relaxed, if your team's not having fun, that's kind of where the problems evolve. So we've seen where the Eagles have finally gotten back into that rhythm, back into having fun, back into believing into each other. You know, A.J. Brown now with that book that he read on the sideline became the bestseller for 1 week on Amazon. I mean, it's just crazy. Sometimes I wish I can pick up a piece of paper and it would be the bestseller of something or another. But it's just insane to me to think that we are so close at this point. The NFC Championship game. Could this be 2017? And I put a tweet out, over the week. Could this be 2017 all over again? Possibly. The last time for the NFC Championship game when Minnesota came to town, Minnesota started hot, and then Kirk Cousins pretty much was deflated. I fortunately was there at the game, which was a lot of fun. And of that year, going to the Super Bowl, everybody knows that Eagles went on. And then you had Kevin Hart, who decided he wanted to collect the confetti out there in Minnesota, put it in his pocket because he thought it was going to be worth millions. And he laughed and joked about it. But nonetheless, could this be 2017 all over again? I know Nick Sirianni just went there a couple years ago against Kansas City. Could this possibly be the rematch? And listen, did it sting because it was Andy Reid, our former head coach with the Eagles, end up beating the Eagles in Arizona? Of course. No one's going to lie. Yeah, it hurt. Andy Reid now is looking to become the first back-to-back-to-back Super Bowl winning coach. And last year I asked a question, and I stated, if Kansas City wins back-to-back championships, would Andy Reid just pretty much go off into the sunset? Now, to me, as Pete brought up this morning, as far as the dynasty, I don't see Andy Reid going anywhere. I think Andy Reid is going to kind of become the new Belichick. So, and what I mean by that is, if again, games are still this Sunday, AFC, NFC championship games. But let's just say Kansas City does pull off the victory off of Buffalo. I'm not even going to name the NFC side. And let's just say they go on to the Super Bowl and they win. Again, hypothetical. I think Andy Reid says, there's no reason why I need to walk away from the game. I mean, he still has it. And Lord knows he got better after leaving from Philly, heading to Kansas City. He was good in Philly. Listen, if there was a thing where he was the most, and he's not for nothing, he still is, the most winning divisional or regular season coach, Andy Reid's got that on lock. The problem was that we just couldn't get over that hump. Now, we know back in 2005, Jacksonville, was there shenanigans? More than likely. But it also came down to McNabb. It also came down to T.O. T.O. did what no other human possibly could end up doing to get himself healthy, to get him to the Super Bowl, and then hopefully finally winning it. Nope. McNabb, who liked to throw at times at your feet, at your ankles, every once in a while at your shins. He just couldn't get it together. There was a story. I don't know if it was ever told, if it was true, if anybody ever seen, if it was actual credible evidence that it happened. But you figured at one point it was said that McNabb had thrown up on the field. And it's probably so there was a picture that was released by the photo medias at the time. And I'm not too sure exactly what it was, so I don't want to state an outlet that it wasn't. But there was a picture that circulated out there. And it looked like that he had thrown up. Now, that's what was told. Was McNabb maybe not ready for the biggest game ever in his career? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe one day if we get fortunate enough to have him here on the show, maybe he'll talk about it. Or maybe he just won't answer and just say, number 5 will always love you, as he talked about it for many years. My thing is that now we've gotten to that point. We're back at the NFC Championship game, separated just a couple years ago, to finally maybe, hopefully, get back and have the opportunity of winning another one. Nick Sirianni must, and I'm quite sure will have, a good game in place. But again, the Commanders have done their homework as they did with Detroit. And if they figure out how to stop the run game, there's going to be a problem. Pass, not as bad. You got a couple weapons still out there in the field. You have Dallas Goedert. I know he was banged up. He's coming back. You have weapons. The problem is, can you utilize those weapons? We've seen where Jalen hurts, and we even saw it on the last game. And I know I mentioned this with Pete, and Pete thinks I'm crazy when I mention it. But when it comes down to Jalen Hurts, and I know it's easier when we're looking at it like the way I'm looking at the camera right now, it's easier looking at it from above or from a TV camera, or you're sitting in a stadium. Sure, we can play armchair quarterback all day long. And it's different because when you're down on the field, you have to take a look over that line and see if there's anybody open. It just drives you nuts because there's no way in the world that Jalen can't tell either. Being down there, if there's no one available, throw it away. A couple of times we've seen him where he was sacked for 7 to 8 yard losses. You cannot afford that against the Commanders. The Commanders have learned all season long, and Dan Quinn will not have him in a position where he has him today if it wasn't because they've learned throughout the season. So in order for the Eagles to be able to capitalize this Sunday, and we'll get into it a lot more come Friday, they need to do better than they've had even in the last 8 weeks of the regular season. It has to be a well-balanced attack, because if it's going to be one-sided, if it's just going to be defense in the game all game long, and they're in there, let's just say for 45 out of 60 minutes, there's no way in the world the Eagles are pulling it off. If it comes down to Jake Elliott, which we never would have ever thought in Philly, they would have come down to his foot, it may not happen either. So Jalen Hurts has to play lights out. Saquon Barkley has to stay healthy and run like he's never ran before. The only thing that drove us a little bit nuts was the run that he had where he looked back at number 8 and basically slowed down to, kind of give him one of those things like, look at the name behind the back and the logo. That's all fine and well. Problem is, just go. Get into the end zone. Don't worry about it. Talk all the trash you want to after you've crossed the goal line. Because how silly would have been, he's taking off like a jet, and then only to the very end to be allowed to be stopped and then strip the ball out your hand, and then it looks silly. So I understand it. I know, obviously, the Rams, a particular player said they didn't like Philly. They hated the green and white, blah, 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 was egging on the fans. And in the end, that's exactly what you wanted. You wanted to send the Rams home and packing. So now come the Commanders, short trip up to 95. Blake Lewis Jr., who was on with the Drive with Q not too long ago, he had said, man, he would really hope that he would play the Eagles, meaning that the Commanders will play the Eagles, so you just have to make a short trip because listen, it gets expensive. Following teams around, it gets to be really expensive. Travel trips, airline tickets, hotel rooms, it gets to be really expensive unless you get somewhere like a DraftKings or somebody else to sponsor that for you. It gets, as a media personality, it gets to be expensive. So it's good that at least Lake Lewis gets to save some money and just take the trip up 95. I don't know what the conditions are going to be like right now. All I know, it is very cold in the Philly market. I know that for a fact, but who knows what's going to come up. And that's why I also mentioned too, to a lot of folks, this is why I didn't care for everybody talking about the weather, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, because in the end, the Rams could have and almost end up pulling it off. But again, you have to always take that out of your mind. Now, I didn't think there was going to be as many passes in the game, truthfully, as there were with the conditions as it was deteriorating throughout the game. But I was really surprised how many were thrown. I thought the Rams had more of a run attack game, but obviously that wasn't the case. They just wanted to keep it in the air. And maybe that was their thing. Maybe they just thought, who cares? Rain, snow, we're going to air it out and see what happens. But it didn't work out too well for them. Anyways, that's the way we start off the show. But we're going to go into our first break here. When we come back, some Arkham and Ard news, some CGM news as well. I believe Stuart may end up joining me a little bit later on. I'm not too certain. Normally it's Wednesdays, CGM Fast Chat, with CGM, with City Garage Motorsports, as they have some good news that they actually have planned out for everyone. So we have that, a little more Daytona news. Nick Saban talks about possibly going back to the NFL because he prefers that than dealing with the NIL stuff. And again, listen, everybody knew at one point or another that was going to start to be talked about, that there's a lot of coaches that don't like this whole NIL deal. And listen, it was bound to happen because you definitely needed the players to be paid. That was a definite. And also, I'd like to get you guys' thoughts as well, because I had no idea apparently that Caitlin Clark was invited to the game. And then you have T Swift and Caitlin Clark. I mean, I guess to me, it didn't bother me as much, but I don't understand that crazy correlation. But hey, whatever. She was there. A lot of things that happened. So who knows? Duncan Ad says, by the way, dang, Rick, thought you were that guy. Ignore my Venmo request, as he puts a laughing emoji up there. But listen, so everybody else. GPG says, excuse me. Great view, man. It's crazy how they can see the cold front coming in. Yeah, I know today is Wednesday. I know today's Wednesday. That's why I said usually the guys from City Garage Motorsports, but again, I know they're busy getting everything set up for Speedy Week. So hopefully Stuart will join me here at 11 o'clock. If not, that's why we always have next week. But nonetheless, and Duncan Dad, he will have something coming up after New Orleans, because he's about to get very, very busy with some other stuff. But afterwards, there'll be something too about Duncan Dad coming up here in February. So stay tuned for that as well. In case you guys missed it, I mentioned it. I'll mention it back after the break. Something that's going to be up on the website very, very soon. So, and maybe some other news come tomorrow. I won't know until I am told, or at least shown the green light, but possibly some really good news come tomorrow. Rick says, by the way, I'll have Gino get in touch with you, Duncan Dad. All right. All right. So listen, you guys are listening to Martinez Company here live. Hopefully you enjoyed the new logo that I put out there on the social medias. That is the logo going forward. The reason for the logo change was when I originally was helping out another network get started and get them on their feet, and then moved over to help out another network before finally coming back to my own network and having the Coastal Sports Network here. I never had that logo that kind of represented Martinez Company, especially being down here in Florida. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the new logo that's up there on the socials. And of course, it's up on the website as well. Duncan Dad says, haha, is that Big Dom's guy? He probably is. All right. So when we come back for a break, we'll get into some ARCA talk. Nick Saban talking about where he wants to go. Khalil Mack is talking about possibly coming back into the NFL season. Will it happen with the Chargers? Could he go back to the Bears? Bears also making their own hire. So there's just so much stuff to get into. And then obviously for those who are in the deep cold, I hope that you guys are staying warm. I don't miss it, and it drives me nuts to be here in Tampa and being cold, but I definitely do not miss those frigid cold temperatures. Thank you, Duncan Dad. I appreciate it. The new logo is fire. I do appreciate it. What do you guys see the one from Duncan that he created? Oh my God. And then let's just say he's in a family, as Rick was responding back to Duncan Ad. All right, don't forget, you guys can call or text the show 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650, and leave your comments on the socials. Don't forget to visit sr1029thegame.com. If you go to the starting lineup, that is where all the shows are broken down. So when we are live, you guys can see not only the live show, obviously here on X, but you can also see it on sr1029thegame.com. So whether it's Pete in the morning from 7 to 10 a.m., myself, Martinez Company, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 12, The Drive with Q now, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., and B's World on Mondays and Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30, Lloyd Vance Insider Football Monday nights from 8 to 9 p.m., Indoor Talking Hoops, as they are tonight, this evening from 8 to 9 p.m., All the shows are up there. So when they are live, you can not only hear it, obviously, on our digital radio platform, but also over on the digital media outlets. Therefore, you can follow it, and also you can download the app while you're there. And speaking of being cold, don't forget, if it is freezing outside, you can always warm up with a great cup of coffee from freshroastedcoffee.com. You guys will see it up there on the lower banners. Freshroastedcoffee.com. Put in your discount code MAC20, as in, pardon me, Martinez Company, MAC20. Therefore, you guys can get 20% off not only your first order, but your returning orders, so you can save some money. Dark roast, Brazilian, Colombian, decaf, whatever it is that you drink, visit freshroastedcoffee.com. Put in your discount code MAC20. Therefore, you guys can enjoy your hot, fresh cup of coffee, as I do, from freshroastedcoffee.com. All right, we'll be back. You're listening to Martinez Company on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Pete Shepard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of ACE Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey. Why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home. Wow. Awesome.
Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the Game app, and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
All right, 10:43 here on this Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 here, and it is not even hit 40 degrees here in Tampa. I know it is cold up north, so make sure you stay warm. It absolutely sucks to get frostbite. And I don't know if anybody heard about the story as well, as I'll get into what I mentioned prior to the break. There was a pilot. Listen, God bless these men and women who are pilots that take us to destinations where we need to go to and beyond. But there was a pilot story I came across a couple days ago where the window apparently blew out or was considered sucked out. I forget what the third co-pilot is called, but apparently, and this is where, once again, you hear about the seatbelts, being put on, but apparently he was coming out the bathroom, coming back in to his seat. The window was pretty much sucked out. And with the window being sucked out, the weird thing was that he was, which I couldn't even imagine as a pilot, he was taken out the window. The other pilot who saw it grabbed him by his ankles, and somehow or another, some 30,000+ feet up in the air, 27,000, I believe was the exact measurement, he was able to hold on to him and not let him go, because a couple things would have happened. One was, if you were to let him go, let's not forget, right, there's a couple important parts up there. One is he could be thrown into the engine, or worse, into the wing of the aircraft. Now, you'd imagine a body at, 200 pounds flying at however many, miles per hour in the air. That wing comes off, it's not a good day. So thankfully, the co-pilot was able to hang on to the co-pilot, the other one into the plane. They were able to make an emergency landing, and he made it. He survived. Did get a bunch of bumps on his head, rightfully so, because he was banging off the plane itself, but and also some third degree and first degree frostbite. But he was able, and hurt his eye in the process, I believe, when he was launched out the window originally. But thankfully, lived and told about it. It is absolutely insane. I don't know how that happens. It just, it's beyond me. But thankfully, he's okay. He's able to be with his family. He has walked around, has talked, and so he is doing just fine. Now, as the most important way to do so is to talk about going from an aircraft over to Lakeland, Florida, where we have Stuart Weiss from City Garage Motorsports. Yes, it is Fast Chat with CGM. As Stuart, some big breaking news from the group. I saw it posted up on the website. And for those that don't know, let me go back, because I want to make sure I do this justice for those who did not hear about the news. But City Garage Motorsports announced its partnership with veteran crew chief David Ift. And this was a press release by City Garage Motorsports. You guys missed it. It was January 21st. City Garage Motorsports announces that the esteemed veteran crew chief David Ift will lead the number 85 team with driver Becca Monopoly in the ARCA Menard Series at Daytona. Ift is a seasoned professional in the racing industry. For those who don't know, began his illustrious career at the age of 20 with Bud Moore Engineering in Spartanburg, South Carolina in 1975. That's when Stuart was only 5 years old, along with myself. But he transitioned to Desjardins Racing Company as a crew chief for Darrell Waltrip, where he celebrated a significant milestone with Waltrip's first super speedway victory at the 1976 Rebel 500 at Darlington Raceway. And for those who don't know, it's the track also known as Too Tough to Tame. Darlington is very unforgiving, but at the age of 77, the Youngstown, Ohio native is dedicated to mentoring and emerging talent. As a quote from David himself, guiding young drivers has become my focus, stated, while they hone their skills on short tracks nationwide, super speedways present a unique challenge. Mastering the draft and maintaining patience in this high-speed chess game is crucial, but Becca is up to that task. We have a solid strategy, and I'm eager to see our performance at Daytona. Qualifying and avoiding trouble are key. She'll do great. Listen, you guys, I don't know how in the world you did, Stuart. But first of all, let me do one of these, because not only was you guys were absolutely pumped about what happened just 2 weeks ago up in Daytona. How did this come about?
Well, honestly, knowing the right people. That's half the battle in this business. You have to know the right people, have the right connections, and have the right people pulling the strings. And we had a connection that put us together with him. And after some, talks about what we're trying to do, they agreed to come on. He's going to bring his son, Gary, who's he could be a crew chief on his own. The two of them are going to come and help us get even more speed out of Storm, our car. We feel like we're in a good position. And we've been making moves for the last 2 weeks to try to put us even in a better position. As well as I do, we talked about it when we were at Daytona. Making the race is imperative for us. And being a young team with no points to be able to go back on, we have to have enough speed in the car to be able to get us there. And we feel like David and Gary are going to help us get there. They're going to help us make the car better. We've had our race car over to DeLand, had some work done on it since we left testing. We're back here. We've changed up a bunch of stuff on the suspension. We've been working on it nonstop, and every mile per hour out of that car is valuable for us right now. So we're sparing no expense. We'll be coming out with another announcement today to try to help secure our position for the Daytona race, 15th. And, I'll release it here. We're joining partners with Club Racing, who has some points, and we're going to run the 86 on our car instead of 85. We're going to run the 86 on our car, teaming with them, and we're going to run that car because at least then it will give us some points to fall back on. So as we talk, we're continuing to make moves to try to make our position better.
That's incredible. It really is incredible. And just seeing you guys, how you network even in garages when we were up there, it's incredible what you guys are doing. I mean, listen, and for those of you guys weren't able to see it, you can see the interview with Becca and myself up on SR1029thegame.com. But Stuart, you guys treat your team as in seasoned veterans, meaning that you guys make the right connections, you make the right moves. Therefore, you don't look like that rookie team. I mean, we've seen teams before in NASCAR where they've come in with just the numbers on the car. Now, it's as time has changed and evolved, obviously you want the sponsors and everything else. And we know during testing, all you pretty much need is the numbers on your car. But you guys, if you go up to your garage, you couldn't tell that this would be the first full season of ARCA Menard you guys are involved in because of just the people and the context you guys have been able to make. And obviously trying to get Becca set up for success coming into a 2025 season. And as David stated, if you guys can squeeze another horsepower out of the car from the way it was, I mean, again, going back to Thursday when all of us were basically on pins and needles and things that ended up happening. And then Friday morning, the minor little scare when it came to the oil. But other than that, I mean, if you can find a way to make that car faster, it would be absolutely fantastic because speed weeks are going to be crazy busy. 4 different series are going to be up there. Everybody trying to test, practice, qualify. It's going to be absolutely insane, but I like the direction where this team continues to go. You guys, I know, are nonstop. Yesterday, those don't know yet, but some prototypes were sent to Stuart yesterday. You guys will be able to pick up City Garage Motorsports merchandise over on SR1029thegame.com. And the way this thing is beautifully designed is for those who want to support the team, not only do you still have the opportunity of being a part of the team, by sponsoring the team on the car, you guys can reach out to Jason Smith on citygaragemotorsports.com. Or for $250, you guys can have your logo up there or be that seasoned professional like the team and just be there more than just one time for the race. Be there for the entire race. Not only that, I also learned from the team that you can swap out your logos, meaning that if you have maybe a different logo on everybody usually has some sort of alternate logo, but they can swap them out for you. Now, I don't know if you want to do it every single week, but I know the ability of the team is there. Not only that, but when you guys make your purchase, you're also supporting the team because that money goes right back to the team because this is the way you end up doing it. When you're networking and you're partnering up, you do stuff so you can help each other out. So City Garage Motorsports, some of the prototypes were sent to Stuart yesterday. It'll be up hopefully by the end of this week, if not next week. I'll make sure you guys know on the social medias. So therefore you can support the team that way. But this week, I know there's not much testing you can end up doing, Stuart, as we know it's already coming up pretty much on the final week of the year here. And then, it's drop of the hat and we're back at the track again. What have you guys done so far just back at the garage in Lakeland?
Well, we've gone through the car completely. We've had to tighten all the fittings, make sure every bolt and nut is tight. We've taken the suspension apart. We're redoing the suspension. We had to work on the chassis. If you remember, Becca was having a difficult time getting in and out of the car at Daytona. So we took it and had a guy modify the chassis a little bit to make it a little bit easier for her to get in and out of. We're trying to maximize everything we do. You mentioned something a minute ago. What we do is professional. This is a professional racing team. This is a professional racing league. When you're race part of NASCAR, which ARCA owns, ARCA owns NASCAR, vice versa. NASCAR owns ARCA. It's a professional organization. The teams you compete against are sparing no expense. They go out and get the best that they can. It's no different than the Giants trying to get a new head coach or get a new quarterback. They're trying to get the best they can to give them the opportunity to win. The same thing for us. And so when we're spending our days, we're looking for opportunities to bring people in that will make us better, bring in new parts that will make our team better. And so until we get to Daytona, we're going to continue to do that. And, the deal we've made now with Club Racing, Alex has 2 cars that he runs full time. And so he has points. The 86 car is sitting 25th in points right now. So by us partnering with them and running the 86, CGM will be running the 86 instead of the 85. It allows us to have those points to fall back on. So if qualifying is rained out and the field is set on points, we're in. Whereas right now we wouldn't be. If, for some reason we can't get enough speed and we can't qualify, 8 provisionals are set by points. We have, as long as 17 cars in front of them qualify, we would be in on points. So it gives us kind of a little bit of a way to hedge our bet to be able to make the race. We feel like we'll be able to make it in on speed. We're confident that Storm is going to be fast enough to qualify. But as the owner and the GM of this team, I've got to make sure we have all the tools we need to be successful. And Daytona is a make or break for us. We have to be there. This will set our season and kind of give us a good launching point for the season.
Yeah, the one thing that people don't understand as well is that you talk about taking the chassis apart, making sure everything's tight, making sure the bolts are tightened down, is also the appearances that you guys have to make for Orlando Health, which you guys are powered by Orlando Health, the great friends out there in Orlando. You guys had to go back to Lake Mary out there in up north of us here from Orlando and the Tampa area, and then be out there, which it seemed like you guys had a lot of fun going out there. I know everybody wished it would be a little bit warmer, but it seems like you guys had a good time. And then going back to the facility that was just open 2 weeks ago. But it was a great time. So to add not only obviously to what you guys have to do to the car, is also then load the car up, get it to an appearance to make sure that everybody knows who was sponsored by, and so that it goes back into the community. So how much of that, for those that don't know, we try to kind of open up the curtains a little bit without giving away too much, but how much does that also take into the setup of the car? Because even, let's just say, for whatever odd reason, which I know it wouldn't be the case, but if there was another chassis adjustment had to be done, that you guys got to put the car together, get it assembled, and back to Lake Mary, how much does that also take into accountability as you guys are getting ready for Daytona?
Well, it all takes in. It's all time. I mean, we have to plan around these events. Orlando Health is amazing. The people are amazing. Just the organization as a whole is just so professional. We have events regularly. We have another event coming up just before Daytona. We have the Quaker State Fest event over in Pinellas County before Daytona. I'll be up in Concord in a couple weeks picking up some more parts before Daytona. I mean, we never stop. I mean, we're running all the time. And so our goal as an organization is to get our brand out, get our team out, have people know about us, have people follow us, support us, and then put the best product we can on the track. While we're working on the super speedway car, we're also working on our short track car, which will be in Pensacola in March, racing our short track car there. So we're still in preparation of getting that ready. And, so we're working on stuff every day. There's never a day where we're not working on the team and working on making us better. But we are still looking for good partners. You mentioned that a few minutes ago. The only way this works is by having good partners with us to do it, because it takes a lot of time and money. Anytime you're in professional sports, it's very expensive. So to do it right. And as you were there at the track with us. We do it right. We have everything in place that we need to be successful, and we're going to continue to do that. We're not going to do it on a budget. And when you do that, you lose speed, you lose opportunity, and you lose the ability to compete. And our goal is to always be competitive, to be able to be out there battling for a top 10, be an opportunity, put us in a situation where we may be able to win a race here. And so, that's what we're trying to do.
Now, for those who don't know, obviously a 4-tire change is not like we complain when we have to, God forbid, we have to puncture a tire, right? Tires before, back in the day, you get away with $40-$50 on a tire. It was good. Or if you lived in Philly, you just go to, what I like to call our little speed shops off the curb, where you just go for $10-$20. And it's not the best tire, but if you just do it to get yourself somewhere. As everything continues to go up, inflation goes up, prices go up, you guys, it's not any cheaper, because people just think, and I know there's a lot of folks that may not follow the sport. When you go to the track, you have some teams that like their setup. They'll like the tires they're using on the car, and they may not use it come race day, or vice versa. They might use one set of tires during that practice, don't like how they feel, change those 4 out for a new set of fresh tires. But for a lot of folks that understand, these tires that you guys use, that obviously have to be accredited to NASCAR, could you explain to folks what just a 4 set of tire change would end up being? And that's just one set for a long race and a long day at Daytona.
Yeah, Daytona is more expensive than most, because you have what they call interliners that go in the tire. So what an interliner is if you're driving down the backstretch and your tire gets punctured, you have an interliner, another smaller tire inside that tire, so that you're not going down to the rim and causing a major accident. It'll allow you to control the car. So for Daytona, those tires all have interliners in them. A set of those tires is about $3,600 for one set of tires. And so, like in Daytona, they'll go through five sets of tires. So you can figure the cost. We typically, on a normal race, will go through 2 sets of tires for a race. So, you can do the math on the cost for those.
Yeah. It's not a cheap sport. And what you guys have to remember too, is that where a lot of people think that it's an actual sport. Racing is a sport. I don't care if you come from the dirt track, from the midget cars, all the way up into NASCAR. It is a very expensive sport. Getting to see firsthand, being with a team at the garage, at Daytona, when I tell you guys that if I had just a good substantial amount of money where I know I can hand off to this team, because I know the return will come back tenfold, I will definitely do so, because it's just the professionalism that comes out of the entire team. I mean, the travel trip up there, we can say, laugh, joke, whatever we want to. Once they hit that track, it's all business. Until the car is loaded back up again and it's back on the road, it's complete business. So if you guys want to help out as much as you possibly can, City Garage Motorsports are still looking for good sponsors. Again, you could be from a hair salon to a dental office, lawyers, anybody. If you guys want to sponsor a team, you can do so by going to citygaragemotorsports.com. Look out for Jason Smith. Get in contact with them. You can also go to sr1029thegame.com. Right on the City Garage Motorsports tab, Jason's contact is up there. Reach out to him and support this team, because there's nothing better. I will say firsthand story. When Becca came off the track the first time and seeing our logo pass by coming off, if my wife wasn't there, I swear I would have been like a kid, just not, when kids have that exciting moment, they throw themselves on the floor and they stomp and scream. That's what I would have been doing. And in all honesty, because there's no better feeling that, when you support your race team and you physically see that car on the track, your dollar is actually being valued, because Becca is one of the better drivers out there. And we hope at the end of the season is one of the best drivers out there, as we talked about dynasties earlier. But Becca is just so well poised. I mean, you would never tell. And just seeing the people, for those who missed it the first time, the folks that were going up to her, and I'm pretty sure it happened again this past weekend when you guys were up there in Lake Mary, for those who looked and wanted to know who the driver was and saw the faces, like Becca was saying, "No, it's me," you would never tell. Like, you would think she's such a seasoned veteran that she knows exactly what it is. When you guys talk about, as I did during the interview, the setup of the car, she knows exactly where this team needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. The blessing that we've had is we've come across just the right people to be with. The Monopolies, Tom as our crew chief and Becca as our driver has just added so much depth to the team. It's given us professionalism. I mean, the cars, you can't get these cars put together any better than Tom does. To our pit crew, to our crew, to our chief mechanic, who's Logan, to just our whole team. We have been blessed with amazing people. And honestly, that's what makes us successful. You can say anything you want about, the motors or the cars or whatever. It's the people that makes us successful. And when we surround ourselves with good people, like you and Dylan and everybody, just our entire team is just an amazing team. And I enjoy going to work. I enjoy going to battle. It is battle for us. When we go to the track, we're at war with the other teams, not like physical war, but our job is to finish better than them. And so, while we're friends with everybody in the pits, everybody's amazing. When we get on that track, we want to win. And so, we go to war every Saturday or Friday night, depending on when the races are. There's nobody I'd rather go with and have my back. And that's something that's, you can't replace and you can't even buy, honestly.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I say it on the network all the time. When this is no longer fun, that's it for me. Either I'm selling it and moving on or something else, because if you don't enjoy what you do, and it's hard. Being in media, the same like being, with a race team, you have to have that drive, that motivation. If you wake up that morning and just say, hey, you know what, today I'm just going to get 50%, you might just go back to bed, because 50% is not going to be good enough. It's either 100% or nothing, one of the two. And the way your team is, the same way it is here at the Coastal Sports Network, it's 110% and more, because you know exactly where you want to be set up for success for the season, including, I can't wait for folks to be able to see the merchandise that's going to happen, because between the CGM hoodies, hats, T-shirts, flags, what else? Phone holders. And it's just going to be nice to see that. I would love for someone in Tampa to walk around with something with CGM. It would make my day. In all honesty, it would just be absolutely terrific. So I can't wait to get back with you guys again. Hopefully come next week. There will be a live show of sorts. I'll just kind of throw that out there for a couple of folks. But I'm dying to get up to the garage as well, because I want to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And as we had mentioned prior to, we want people to learn just a little bit more without giving away too much. But, Stuart, you guys are doing such an incredible job. The news ended up breaking. I was, busy a couple of days doing something else. But with the news that came out, Arkham Menard obviously releasing it on their website as well. I mean, it was such big news. And I wish you guys can kind of understand, when you think about the name Darrell Waltrip and you talk about the racing history, even what he has, this is absolutely a big way. And when you talk about making big splashes in Major League Baseball and the NFL, this is the way you do it in the Arkham Menard series. And City Garage Motorsports did that. So congratulations on making that happen. That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and you talk football, this is our Bill Belichick. We're bringing in Bill Belichick for us to help us at Daytona. And, we feel that the value that he's going to add on top of what we already have is just, incredible. So we're excited about it.
Duncan Dad says, by the way, mailing it in, meaning the check. Yeah, I know a few guys. Listen, it's always appreciated. And this is DW for those, the short acronym for Darrell Waltrip. Yep. And if you guys had missed it, he always used to say in the beginning of the races, boogity, boogity, boogity.
Boogity, boogity. That's it. That's his saying. Yes, sir. And so we're excited, man. Join us for this trip. I think you guys will have a lot of fun. You can tell you, nobody is more sincere and loves sports more than we do. And that's why we partnered with Angel, and because he's the same way. And so it's going to be a fun ride. Sure is. I can't wait. Well, listen, Stuart, thank you as always for your 15 minutes here. Fast chat with CGM. Don't forget, you guys can follow CGM on Twitter and Instagram, CG Motorsports FL, as in City Garage Motorsports Florida, just the acronyms on there, CG Motorsports Florida, over on Twitter, also on Instagram. So you guys won't miss a thing. Visit the website, citygaragemotorsports.com. And don't forget to always, even if you can't, listen, there's nothing wrong with making a donation too. If you want to make a donation towards the team, it can go towards coffee and everything else. Lord knows there's a lot of expenses. But Stuart, thank you once again. Can't wait to talk to you. And I'm pretty sure we'll stay in contact throughout the week, because since there's more news always breaking from you guys, it's always great to hear about it. But Stuart, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon. All right. Yes, sir. There it goes. Stuart from City Garage Motorsports. I'm pretty sure they're going to get back into the garage, get the air gun going. Listen, you guys, once again, this team
is just so beyond professional. And I've been very, very, very lucky to be able to partner up with them for the Arca Menard 2025 season. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And just experiencing what I did up at Daytona. I've been a race fan for many, many years for NASCAR. When I lived in Philly, used to go out there to Dover, Delaware, the Concrete Mile, went up to Poconos. It's an experience like no other. But now to be in the pits with the guys, in the garages, even just being at the media center at Daytona, being able to do it from this side of the house on something you love to do and to be out there, it is absolutely, absolutely nuts. Duncan Dad says, let me see where he's, DW, Michael Father and Son Daytona winners. Absolutely true. Michael Waltrip was a winner when Dale Earnhardt, the late Dale Earnhardt, had created his team with Michael Waltrip, which he was just beside himself when ended up doing it. The brothers, not the father and son. I understand what you talked about. That's okay. No worries. I understand. As he said, it's his fault. But no, listen, DW and Michael Waltrip, you guys don't know. I mean, first of all, racing legends. And Michael Waltrip, when Dale had passed away, he was setting up both Michael and Dale for the win. And Dale wanted to come in. And if you guys have never followed NASCAR, and by the way, Rick, I'm going to get back to your comment here in a second. If you guys have never followed NASCAR, at the time, no one ever knew of basically Dale, the man in black, to be able to help launch someone for the win. And when he had started Earnhardt Incorporated, it was just one of those things that and mind you, this guy never graduated from high school. He dropped out from school and became successful. Still has a successful, what I believe is still run by his son, auto dealership, and also Rick Hendrick helped him as well. But he wanted his team, and Steve Park was part of the team as well. He wanted them to possibly come in 1, 2, 3 if possible. But, unfortunately, he paid the ultimate sacrifice with his life. I know a lot of people with Sterling had the original DEI, correct, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, not the one that's out there now. So good joke by Duncan Dad as he threw it up there. Yeah, they were the actual original DEI, the good ones for that matter, not the joke to what it is today. But no, listen, Sterling had, when he drove the Coors Light car, Lord knows, I mean, he led dark years, not even dark days. There were so many people that blamed him for his death. And people that don't know, Dale Earnhardt never wanted his 5-point harness to be secured like the rest of NASCAR, meaning to the chassis, the 5-point harness when it came to the lap had to be past your hips. And the reason is so that you want to be propelled forward in the car. Dale didn't like that. Dale wanted it basically to run alongside of his hips. He didn't want it a little bit further back. And everybody knew at the very end, the last lap of every race, he would loosen up his harness. So unfortunately, when he ended up hitting the wall, from what was told, no one ever saw the pictures. And truthfully, I'm glad they never showed them because that's not the way anybody ever want to remember Dale Earnhardt. But the impact apparently was to the face and chest, which a lot of things were broken from the steering column that ended up on Dale Earnhardt. So, because of him, NASCAR and others, Adam Petty, unfortunately, Richard Petty's son, who also lost his life that following year, along with another NASCAR driver. Because of them, that's the reason why the Hans device, why NASCAR became a lot safer, because they wanted to make sure they didn't lose another driver. And God bless Becca Monopoly, because I know she was out there by herself, then she had a draft partner. But this year at Super Speedway, like everybody else, I mean, she's going to learn that, come the draft, and I know Arca Menard or NASCAR I put out, they are no longer putting out the rookie stripes, and we'll take a break and we'll come back with that as well because they got rid of that. It is just how much of the impact, how much has changed in racing, even the IRL series, the Indy series, they've made it so much safer. So when these guys are taking these high impacts or going into turns that hopefully we don't lose another one. Duncan says immediately changed the way auto racing ramped up safety. It did. And the Hans device was starting to become a thing. I believe Kevin Harvick was one of the first early ones to test it out. And it was tough for me. And I followed Dale for many, many years. And you would think somebody who lives in Philly, why the heck would I care about the sport? Because I loved it. And it sucked. I'm not going to lie. One of the darkest days ever. Because when you have to come out and let everybody know that NASCAR lost its greatest driver ever. That was just tough. It really, really was tough. But because of that, the cars have gotten safer. The safety flaps that are on the car, on the rooftop, the whole idea is to try to get the car not to flip over end, but it still happens, but eventually they'll get better. Duncan says car of the future got a little pushback, but man, did it save countless lives. Yep, it did. The car of the future, I wasn't a fan of it. I understand where NASCAR was going with it, Duncan Dad, because you make a great point as well. I understand where they were going with it. The only thing that a lot of us didn't like, it almost felt like, oddly enough, like they try to move the driver's seat towards the middle of the car. But the problem was that there was no advantage, meaning that everybody had just about the same identical car and almost the same identical setup. And it stunk. I had the collectible. There was a lot of us that weren't fans of it, but then they ended up going back. They modified it. Now, if you go to the NASCAR track, obviously you see the make and model of the car, exactly what it looks like if you see them on the road. So the Toyota Camry, number 85, you guys had just heard from Stuart Weiss and City Garage Motorsports, will now be ran as the Car 86 in Daytona Speedweeks for the ARCA Menard series coming up later this year. So we'll keep you in tune of what's going on with the race team. And there's one other thing too I want to get into ARCA Menard, but we're going to take a break as we take our second one of the day. It is almost 11:15 here on the East Coast. That would make it 8:15 on the left coast. Wherever you guys are, don't forget, it is that time of the year where you like your lattes. Sometimes you like your spiced coffee, spiced teas. You know, you need a little more pick-me-up. No better place to do that than if you guys go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Freshroastedcoffee.com. You guys will see it coming along the bottom banners. Put in the discount code MAC20, MAC20 for Martinez Company 20. Get 20% off not only your first order, but your returning orders as well. So you guys can always go back, pick yourself up some delicious coffee. Again, decaf, Brazilian, Colombian. I don't know, if you need some extra lead, I'm pretty sure they also have extra lead coffee as well. But visit freshroastedcoffee.com, discount code MAC20. Therefore, you can stay warm with a nice hot cup of coffee from Fresh Roasted Coffee, as I do right here in my hand. Freshroastedcoffee.com. Don't forget, discount code MAC20. All right, when we come back, we'll get a little bit into the NFL. As I mentioned, one more new piece of news from the ARCA Menard series. And then your texts and calls as well at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. You are listening to Martinez Company live on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody. It's Pete Shepard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of ACE Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists at ATA. They're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com, or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class, let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back. It is the final 45 here, just about, on the Coastal Sports Network. I am Angel Martinez. You're listening to Martinez Company on SR1029thegame.com. Of course, you guys can always listen to us not only directly on the app itself, but you can go to SR1029thegame.com, listen to the show that way. You can view or watch the show on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Kicks, Rumble, Twitch, basically anywhere where you guys are is exactly where we are. And don't forget, you can always watch the show replays after the shows are over. If you go to SR1029thegame.com, go to the sports radio lineup, or the starting lineup, I should say, and then go to the individual shows. You'll be able to hear back the video and audio replay once I get it ready and post it up there on the website. One thing before we get into some NFL talk here that I wanted to mention is Duncan Dad joins me here from the Arkham Menard series. The West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame 150 at Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway. That is happening this Saturday. Now, I have not heard of any changes at the moment, but we shall see, because supposed alleged the wildfires somehow another jumped from LA to San Diego. Don't ask me how in the world that ended up happening, but Saturday, January 25th, 2025, Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway, the half-mile asphalt oval, which is located in Bakersfield, California. The start time is 6:20 Eastern Time, 3:20 Pacific Standard Time. 150 laps, 75 miles. There is no TV broadcast at the moment, but you can listen to the live stream at Flow Racing and on the radio at arcaracing.com. So that's coming up this Saturday. And joining me, amongst all his trips to Paris, Italy, pretty soon the basement of some tugboat and other places, is Duncan Dad. Duncan, how are you?
How are you? I figured I'd check off all of the Rivieras this summer. So we did the French one. Now I get to do the Mexican Riviera, which I don't know necessarily if you consider it on the same par. Not trying to throw our people underneath the bus, but there's a big discrepancy between where those two places are at. But it'll be fun. Yes, I'm actually funny you brought that up because I keep watching the alerts on the fires, and heart goes out to everybody in California. Completely crazy. And again, how it jumped, that I listen, take it for what it's worth, people. Stay safe, do what you guys need to do, get out if you need to evacuate. But we're actually threading that needle. So it was like LA, San Diego, and like Long Beach is right in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I'm just like, it's so selfish. I'm like, let's just get to that point where we can get in, get on a boat, go out, come back. And then I was like, oh my God, whatever. And listen, this is like, they were amazing deals. It was like, super on the cheap or whatever. It's like one of those promos where like you got your fingers crossed. It's like, all right, I'm going to give you $100. It's going to be deposit. And by the time I'm done, it's only going to be like $400. So as long as you feed me, you got bottled water, I should be okay. Right.
Exactly. No, listen, I mean, it's good for you guys, but yeah, I listen, again, I don't try to do the whole CP thing, but it's just how explain to me. LA, big gap. Oh, San Diego. I listen.
It's nuts. And those wins are no joke. They're no joke. And we can talk about whether conspiracies or discrepancies or how it is right now. I mean, that lower Arctic, whatever jet stream, that dip that it has going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God bless the people down in the far south that aren't used to handling this kind of weather. Because, I mean, I thought it was awesome. I see the pictures of New Orleans. I'm like, oh, this is great. 8-10 inches worth of snow. The kids get snow days for the first time. And, but people aren't prepared for that. Now, it's not going to hang around. It's not going to be there for, 2 weeks or by the time the team show for the Super Bowl. But it just goes to show you that this phenomenon, it just happens. It just happens. You can't account for it. I mean, that's the greatest common denominator in the world is Mother Nature, man. Yeah. Like you think it's good or whatever, it's like, boom, I got you. I mean, we had earthquake here last year. Enough to feel it and shake the house. I thought it was a freight train going by. I think we were like on the air the one day with it. I was just like, all right. I'm thinking like, it's Conrail coming through, right? They just, moving stuff up and down because every now and then, right? Trains still have to move. And it's like, no, that was an earthquake about 40 some miles away. And it's just like, geez, all right. I got you. I see you. Noted.
No, for sure. But it's always fun to travel. Don't get me wrong. It's
fun.
This time of year, the only thing, as Rick had mentioned, he was probably going to be de-icing some of the planes today out there for Southwest and Tampa. But I am not a fan, honest to God. The only times I will really make my hair stand up what I ever got left up here. But it's just when it comes to like, once I have to hear we are de-icing the plane, I'm not a fan of it. And I know, listen, thank God nothing has ever happened during times where it's been really cold, but I'm glad they're also taking a lot more precautions as of late and just saying, listen, when it's bad weather, let's play it safe for everybody. I know people don't like it, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
I have never understood out of all of the industry in the world, and Rick probably will, praise us up and whatever for saying this, but it's an airplane, right? It's not a car. It's not like, hey, I got a flat tire. I need to pull over to the side of the road. Oh, my check engine light came on. Let me just, slide over here to the Sunoco station and see, who's working in the back, and Billy Bob can come on out, throw a new timing belt on. Like you're putting yourself up into empty space, flying. Like there's a stop and there's a go, right? There's no in between. So if it's going to take a couple extra minutes, or if things are delayed, dude, pump your brakes. Like you realize you're entrusting the machine and these people to carry you through open air 30,000 feet above it. Like, man, just good to go. Now, again, get your point of destination, your times and efficiency and blah, blah, blah. But seriously, like, it's one of those things where you're just like, people freaking out over stuff. Dude, relax. Like, there's a reason why, like, no one wants to sit on the tarmac. No one wants to be there and getting all hot, whatever. But there's a process, right? That's the trade-off with some of these things, right? But anyway, it's long story short, God bless those guys. Keep doing a great job, phenomenal job. Take your time, extra oil, extra gas, whatever you guys need.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. By the way, I haven't even mentioned and I know it's already 2 days from what happened. Ohio State finally went back home because there's a lot of problem circumstance that's afterwards that they have to end up doing. Media, no 9 yards. Will Howard, who didn't start obviously at Ohio State, but finished his career there. And I know he made the transfer because he got tired of the kid being from Downingtown, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. But he felt like he was a starting quarterback, and he just felt when he was at Kansas, like, they're not giving me the opportunity. They did, and I'm taken away when the starting quarterback came back, ends up winning a national championship, obviously as a senior, so now he can enter the NFL draft. If that's what he chooses to do, some people just, they get to a certain point, they're like, that's not my thing. I want to go into another different direction. But Ohio State, and bringing back an old familiar name in Chip Kelly, where finds another way to have another ring on his finger, even if it's a collegiate ring. But the last time he did it was with the Oregon Ducks. Couldn't do anything at Cal. Decides to freaking go to Ohio, help out Day, and then, as always said, the rest is history. But I'm happy for Will Howard, though, because I know there was a lot of people who just didn't believe in him whatsoever and just thought, like, he's not really a good, solid quarterback. Now, will he be a starter on a team, depending on how well he does in the NFL? Who knows? He could be that surprise that no one ever picked. But the other interesting part to it was, why would the students break into Ohio's stadium just to celebrate? I'm like, what are you guys thinking? But nonetheless, I understand they're national champs, and that's it. Gaston guy, by the way, says, "What's up, Duncan Dad? Good to see your smiling face, or great to see your smiling face," as he had mentioned. So it's just it surprises me. But again, now national champs. Last time they were national champs was 2014. Mm-hmm. Ohio State now could be just now the front runners come for next year for the college world for everyone to follow.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys on that team that will probably most likely return. I know Judkins, Henderson, they might flip up and go to the draft. Howard, I mean, if I was a betting person, I'd probably just hang around. I know the other quarterback from Ohio State, he just entered transfer portal. So they got a good team. They were obviously the class of college football the entire season. I know people rip on the Big Ten or whatever, but hey, the last two national champs have come from the Big Ten, and you look up and down the college football playoff, there's a lot of Big Ten teams littered in there. So has the SEC sort of lost its sheen a little bit? Maybe. But to your point earlier, you were talking about Saban going back to the pros, potentially, floating that out there. The NIL, it has essentially, I said from the beginning, I was like, as soon as they start paying college kids in any kind of capacity, it kills college sports. Like, the amateurism is done. And you can't avoid it because that's the world and the time that we live in. But that the balance that used to exist between these schools, and listen, we're not naive here. We all know that the Reggie Bush sort of things existed way back when with the old Texas and the old Alabamas and the old Cals and the old UCLAs. Like, we know that under the table, you get your blue chip guy and you're like, hey, here's a little stipend for you. It's a gift from Mother Teresa around the corner, blah, 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 blah. And this guy's got a couple extra bucks. We got that. But now where you can blanket pay these kids to perform underneath the university logo, man, it is so difficult to level that playing field, especially when you have larger institutions that just command the attention and the respect. And then at that point, you've basically developed a pseudo no cap league where I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy every single blue chip quarterback, bring them to my team and say, look, sit on the bench. At some point, you're going to start. Sit on the bench. At some point, you're going to start. And now, under the promise of just an education and housing and blah, 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 and all the fraternities and sororities, whatnot, now they're getting money. You have college kids making more money than some of these professional athletes. They joked about Angel Reese, having to stay at, LSU the extra year. She was making more money at LSU than she would have going to the WNBA.
Yep.
Now, obviously, endorsement deals, et cetera, that factors into it. We're not avoiding that conversation. But other people, man, I can imagine what would have happened way back when. You see some of these stacked teams. That Miami team, the 2001, 2003 Miami team, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, it was loaded. That team, your NIL deal probably like up in the 50, 60 millions paying these kids nowadays. So I take it all with a grain of salt. People going inside and outside the portal, that stuff needs to be tightened up a little bit. The certain individuals, they were saying, oh, you can't play in these playoff games because you decided to enter the portal. Then a guy comes out of the portal so he can play in the game. The kid from Georgia did it. Wide receiver, he entered the portal, said he was going to transfer because he obviously knew that Beck was going to Miami. Comes back, he's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take myself out of the portal. I'm going to play in the playoff game, and then I'm going to jump back into it. Like, there has to be some regulation with this. If not, you're just going to turn it into everything that they wanted to avoid for the last 20 years.
Yep.
4 or 5 teams ruling the roost.
It's insane. In college, for as many years they've been around, I mean, have they made hand over fist money? Okay. Mm-hmm. First of all, God bless the folks that were able to do so. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it in my younger years, so I chose the military and or the Philadelphia Police Department. Unfortunately, I did my second swear-in when Chief Willie Williams called me up and said I was able and eligible to go to the academy. But at that time, I ended up joining our beloved government, which I will always go back and do so if ever called. But for you think about it, for how many years have these universities have made money off these young men and women? And, I think there was some news too about the women making more money this year during the Final Four for basketball, which is good to see because, again, well-deserved. That's another one. Just like the men, the women's tournament, when it comes down to the Final Four, it's a boatload of money people spend, especially because it's going to be right here in Tampa, which is even better. And then I believe the bowl game is also being played here in Tampa in 2029. God willing, I'll still be around. But it's going to be, that's huge. But you got to figure, Duncan, for some of these universities, it makes me laugh when they talk about these deals and what some of them don't want to pay, or these kids go to this other university. I can understand, D4, D5, D12. I get it. But when you're Division I football, SEC, Big Ten, you're going to spend, I don't care what a coach thinks. I know they don't like to deal with the NIL, but there's talent that's going to be out there, and you're talking about paying them $20 million. I wouldn't even know when the hell to do something like that. Like, if I would have had, could you imagine us back in the day if we played baseball or football and they told us, hey, Duncan, Angel, you guys are going to make $10 million for at least for this season? I wouldn't know what to do, but God bless that they're making it. But for these universities to go back and say, I don't think we should be paying that kind of money. You guys have made that plus and over. And there's some universities that get into the billions for what they've made for a year. So I don't feel bad for these guys and girls that are out here making that money. Hopefully they are well educated as they do at USF. I know USF has an instructional class that they make sure they want you to know how you should spend your money wisely and invest. But it comes down to a point too, sometimes, sure, all these gifts and perks that we've seen before that teams have gone away with before, now not as much because the NIL deals are bigger. But I'm not at the point anymore where none of these universities should be crying about anything whatsoever, because this is what you guys had set up for the future.
Exactly. And you nailed it. There are universities that they're so rich in their alumni base, and more power to them, and more power to the players for taking advantage of this opportunity, because you would be begrudged not to do it. That's why when people argue about, oh, XYZ professional player got fill in a number contract, like, oh my gosh, it's funny money. But if the market is dictating this value and this worth, and individuals are willing to pay it, either through a corporation, through insurance companies, through a bank, through a private donor, and you can sort of, skirt around a lot of those cross T's, dot I's, why wouldn't you take advantage of it if it's not going to fall into a violation with the SEC or something that's illegal? There has to be at some point a little bit of regulation and a little bit of opening up of the books, because St. Mary of the Poor, James Madison University, Shippensburg University, Kutztown, some of these smaller colleges that play in Division I or, FBS or whatever, eventually, the breadcrumbs have got to come downhill to support them. Otherwise, what happens? You start to see programs folding across the country, and they just maintain themselves as the institution. And then at that point, they were completely reliant on, well, we can't give scholarships out anymore. You've got to come here. You've got to pay room. You got to pay your board. And oh, by the way, if you want to play athletics and we still maintain that program, there has to be something to fund that. Maybe there's a booster club. Maybe there is an alumni association. But that depth and that well is not the same as Penn State, Michigan, Alabama, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, you are making it completely one-sided with this business model, and you're going to essentially erase some of these other programs, because we all know the same way that if I'm paying you for something, right? I'm like, hey, Angel, here's $20 for my subscription for the month, right? My intention and my understanding is that here's my $40 million for my NIL deal on players X, Y, and Z. What you do with that money is completely up to you. So, hey, you know what? We need to redo dorm housing, blah, 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 blah. We have this extra bit of money. We put it over there. Well, why? Because on the backside, I know I'm making this extra money that I need to pay out on this NIL stuff. So when you have such a cache, literally and figuratively, of these benefactors, these boosters, these individuals, these donors, you are head and shoulders above a lot of these other places. That's why people are complaining about, how come Major League Baseball, like, God bless Jack Flaherty, love you to death, great pitcher with the Cardinals, thought stand-up guy. He comes out and he's like, everybody's complaining that the Dodgers are doing this, blah, 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 but the other teams aren't. Listen, the other teams don't have ownership with unlimited pockets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Kansas City, Minnesota, who's getting ready to sell their team. Check out the Upper Bowl podcast with Trevor. Talked about that. They don't have that wealth. Right? They don't have ownership like Magic Johnson. They don't have ownership like Josh Harris. Like they do not have access to that sort of money. If you crowdsourced in LA and said, hey, every celebrity that shows up to a game, you guys want to pitch in and make an anonymous nomination, boom, instantaneously. Now you walk over here to Miami and you're like, hey, the Marlins kind of need to upgrade a little bit. Everybody's like, why the heck am I going to give you guys money? Like, nobody even shows up to these games. So that conversation right there gives you a quick snapshot of where this is all trending to. And we used to joke and complain about these video games we get in the past as little kids, and it had the California team, the Chicago team, the New York team, and that's basically what it's coming back to. It's coming back to where you're going to have 8 or 9 teams that are going to be able to sustain themselves. Everything else is just going to go away. You see it with the TV deals. You see it with Bally. You see it with was it DraftKings and someone else? They were buying TV contracts out for people. It just happened in Dallas with their hockey team and with the baseball team, Vision Plus or something like that. They're sourcing subscriptions out to broadcast some of these teams because even those guys who just won the World Series, they can't compete with the Astros down the block. They can't compete with the Yankees. They can't compete with the Dodgers. College football, now, guess what? You're in it. And like you said, you wanted it. Now you have it. So for all the good that comes along with it, now all the bad too. There's two sides to the coin, man. Always two sides to the coin.
It is. And it's a tough call. I understand it. Just like you had Nick Saban, who had mentioned that he would prefer to go back to the NFL than get another college deal because he doesn't want to deal with the NIL. And who else was it? I believe from South Carolina. Well, am I drawing a blank here? Thinking about the team, not the Gamecocks. Who's hell? I know it'll come to me. One of the other
basketball coach?
No. From the NFL side of the house. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, no, not Rivers. Rivers wasn't there. So.
No, it'll come to me. Excuse me. But anyways, he had mentioned that he didn't want to deal with the NIL either. He wants to do it like he did back in the day, as you did, was to go through, check out who's out there from high school coming in.
Right. You're talking about Belichick when he was going to North Carolina?
No. I know that it'll come to me. It's a coach who's been around. It's just I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but Anyways, he had mentioned he doesn't want to go through a whole NIL transfer. He wants to set up his team for success without going through the NIL or anything else. And listen, whatever. That's what you want to do. Unfortunately, these athletes know that now they hold the cards. So they're going to tell you where they're going to play or not play. And again, it's twofold. Yes, it's good that they're paying them. At the same time, too, you were going to set up this monster, and it wasn't going to be long before you set it up because they know, like, nope, Duncan, I'm not playing for you. I'm going to go play for Bill Belichick, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
That's it. Starting quarterback of Las Vegas this year. He played 4 games, and then he pulled himself out.
Yep.
And they were like, well, why? He said, well, you guys promised me $1 million plus a couple extra bucks to be your starting quarterback. I haven't seen a dime of it. So guess what? Until I get paid, too bad, so sad. You don't have a quarterback. And when you give the players leverage like that, essentially then, right, they are an employee. And that's the other side to the coin. Now that you're an employee and now that you're receiving money for your services, that creates a whole other question of an HR management. What are your performance objectives? Have you met these objectives? Are you being graded, correctly on? Are you being graded unbiased on your performance? Did you meet X, Y, and Z? If not, what are the ramifications? Can we demote you? Can we trade you? Can we fire you? Can we shop you around? And I'm sure if you start picking up the phone and you're like, hey, I got this great running back, blah, 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 blah. He needs X, Y, Z dollars, but he's not. And there he goes. And then that's essentially the precursor of what the portal is, because the portal's this very specific amount of time, right? It's basically your trade deadline,
right?
Your free agency deadline. And listen, you've opened up Pandora's box, so enjoy it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's exactly what it is. All right. Now, a couple things, obviously, with Detroit was eliminated. Crazy to see, but now, like we saw with the Eagles just a few years ago, when we lost our DC, we lost our OC. Obviously, someone is having fun on the Commander side. And Indy, maybe not as much, but they want to keep him around. But it was kind of expected. I don't think I would have seen this much. Right now, you lose, Ben Johnson, another your defensive coordinator now heads over to New England. These are things that unfortunately are good and bad things. Detroit having the success that he had, didn't want to be eliminated, but the Commanders came into town, ended up taking care of that process. Mike Vrabel is setting up the Patriots now for something magical up there in New England because of what Robert Kraft did, saying that, he owned up that he had made a mistake, and now he's trying to get the fan base back saying, hey, we're going to get back to where we were before. Not saying the first year is going to end up happening because, again, Dan Quinn went into Washington, and he didn't, not a peep from Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn just went in, shook hands, took pictures, did his media moment, and let the talking happen as the season progressed. Now, and there's another show coming up, obviously, before Sunday, but at this point, seeing what the Commanders did, because I didn't have the show on Monday, but seeing what they did over the weekend, has it affected you in a way that you believe maybe the Eagles are kind of dead even matched up with Commanders?
I mean, I think that on paper, the Eagles are the far superior team. But you don't play games on paper, and you don't play games on the coulda, woulda, shouldas and hypotheticals, right? You play it on the field. They split this year. Kudos to Washington for coming back on the second game and driving and beating them. I read a phenomenal article post about Jaden Daniels, how he trains using his virtual reality stuff. It speeds up, his processing went up, probably why he looks so calm, cool, and collective. Familiarity breeds a really, really close game. I'm not sitting here looking at that 6-point favorite and doing backflips. It's a division game. They know each other. The culture of fans know one another. It's a home game for the Eagles. There's a whole lot on the table, but I'm not sitting there walking away from this conversation from the table going, you know what? This game will be over at halftime. No big deal. I expect it to be a very hard-fought, medium to low scoring sort of game. Eagles aren't going to get in any kind of shootout with Washington, right? This isn't going to be like Detroit. We're not going to sit there and be like, I'm going to hang 28 on you throwing the ball. You're going to hang 45. Like, that's not going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those lineup attrition machine over and over and over. And if the Eagles play that way, then it's going to be a matter of how quickly are they able to break Washington's defense, because Washington's offense, they're going to score points. They just are. McLaurin is a very formidable wide receiver. Daniels is light years ahead of his time. Robinson has kind of just been hanging out in limbo. And kudos to the veteran tight end across the board now. We've seen this step up. Kelsey stepped up in Kansas City. Goddard showed up last week. They have a great tight end in Zach Ertz, right? Don't have to be amazing. You don't have to be 100% on your game. All you have to do is be a veteran, get into space, make your catch. Yeah, and the Eagles don't have Goff at quarterback. We all know Goff was due for a Goff game there, Beef. But Hurts, how much is the knee healed? Is he okay from the knee? Is he going to be able to roll out? Is he going to be able to take some runs downfield? Is he going to exploit that pressure when it comes from Washington? All of these things, the coordinators, they're running through it. How are we going to attack this team? What are we going to do? It is going to be a much closer game than I think people are anticipating. I think Washington is playing well at the right time, and they have all the confidence in the world.
They are playing well. And the confidence level is definitely, I mean, it's going up there. I would have, Jane Daniels, I was a little upset last year when we covered a bowl game here in Tampa. They decided to send himself out from the LSU game. Listen, I somewhat get it because you are now, you put yourself for draft eligibility. And I know you don't want to get
your number one pick, man.
I know. But it drives you bananas sometimes. And again, I get it. But this kid has shown some great poise. I mean, it's some people, I know some people will look at it like, oh, he's a little bit cocky or whatever. I haven't really seen that. It just, his confidence is there. Playing again like a seasoned veteran quarterback, even though it's his first year in the NFL, and it would be, I'd be highly upset, obviously, if they beat the Eagles. But to even get to the NFC Championship game in your first season into the NFL, there is, once again, that good and bad. The good is that it shows the Commanders that he did make the right move of getting his quarterback. The bad, that starts, and this is where the conversation will go toward the offseason. He's in year 1 of year 4 of his rookie contract. Now, do we start with the shenanigans of, well, I played my rookie contract. I think I should be getting this. I demand that, blah, blah, blah. We've yet to see any of these quarterbacks that have demanded, or any of the athletes that have demanded, like, I played this, I'll play that, pay me, and none of them gone on to win. I don't even think Patrick Mahomes, after he did his rookie season, I mean, obviously Kansas City went in, did the deal with him not too long ago to restructure his contract again for another, extension. And I don't see him letting go anytime soon, but I just hope that right now, and not that whatever the Commanders want to do is beyond them, because as an Eagles fan, we don't care one way or the other. But my thing is that hopefully, if for all intents and purposes, Commanders lose, they go into the offseason, hopefully we don't start hearing already the grumblings and the mumblings of, oh, pay me, this, that, and the other. Just stay the course of where you are. Everybody really appreciates what you've done down there in D.C. because they've needed that turnaround. And I'm hoping more than anything else that the NFL and Roger Goodell stop with the whole thing of woke this, woke that. Bring back the Redskins logo. Bring it back. Everybody misses it, including the folks down there in D.C. The tribe themselves have spoken, and they've already sent the letters out and said, listen, we had no issues with it whatsoever. We don't understand why it's gone. Bring it back. There are so many people that want to wear that logo all over again. The only thing is, and I think there was a rendering of possibly one of the newer stadiums in DC. And it's kind of wild because I don't think it's going to be completely domed, but the way it's going to face up, it almost looks like one of the English teams when they play soccer across the pond there. But it's very, very futuristic as far as what they want to do. I believe it's somewhere up in the $7 to $8 billion. The only thing is, I don't know if they're going to keep it right there in Cripes. What is that freaking county out there?
No, Prince. It's not Prince Edward, right?
No, right next to it. But anyways, I'm just wondering where they plan on doing so, because it's almost like the whole thing. What I mentioned at the very top of the show was the thing with the Sixers that they want to move downtown, and all of a sudden, nope, we're going to stay in South Philly. It looks like it's going to be a much better stadium. FedEx Field sucks. It sucks since day one. When it was Jack King Cook Stadium, it absolutely stunk. Because if you're up in the upper bowl section, number one, you can't go around the entire stadium.
Correct.
You can only go, but at least 180, and then you have to come back to complete the 360.
Yep.
And whatever, they spend that kind of money. I think if they're going to do it right, as we're still awaiting down here what the Rays are planning on doing, because that's come to a complete halt, other than putting the paper mache for 2026 to get them back into the stadium. But for DC, good luck as far as stadium. I'm not going to talk about good luck as far as the game coming up, because that's to our birds. But they're just, Dan Quinn he's done probably the most exceptional job that no one expected with the team of hires that he did. And the people he put into place have shown that obviously his experience has got him to where they are this season in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll talk a lot more shop with the football coming up on Friday, I'm sure. But to hit on your point real quick to wrap it up with the coordinators, super important. Dan Quinn gets hired. He goes gets Williams. He goes gets Cliff Kingsbury. Lets them do their job. Going back to what you mentioned about Detroit, those are huge losses for Detroit. To spin it any other way, you're kidding yourself. First of all, a guy goes to your division, and even though the defense secondary line coach, whatever, the DC is saying, goes over to, New England, it's essential that when you are building a championship team, that you have the right coordinator in place. So when your head coach is doing the CEO sort of job, the executive sort of jobs, the rah-rah sort of jobs, these guys have got your back. Now, you're eventually, realistically, you guys are starting over. Well, what kind of offense are you going to run next year? Well, we're going to come and try to run the same offense as Brian Johnson. No, you're not, because Brian Johnson's not calling the plays. You could have all the same tools. I've always said this to you, right? You can line anybody up and put them in any kind of car, any kind of piece of equipment. How I drive a car, how you drive a car, completely different. We all got into that ARCA car, number 86, with CGM Motorsports, and sat behind the wheel between Becca, yourself, me. Everybody's going to drive it different.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to drive it different. Essential when you have a game plan and you have the right tools and talent in place. Because now, people, maybe I will take that phone call if I'm getting ready to go into free agency, right? Yeah, it's little things like that. That's the business side of it that for the longest time, no one really had to pay attention to. Got drafted by a team, stay on that team. Coaches stayed there forever. Coordinator stayed there forever. And maybe after you won a championship, or maybe after completely bottomed out, somebody's like, okay, I'm going to go coach over here now. Okay, see you later. Not now. Not now, man. The way of the world.
What's been surprising to me it's been a cool off, unless I've missed it being off for a couple of days, but Mike McCarthy talk all of a sudden just kind of it fizzled out after the Bears had wanted to make a move. Obviously that didn't happen as they already hired their head coach, but is there not that I don't think Mike McCarthy is really pressed whether he gets hired or not this season, because Lord knows come next season there'll be another slew of firings that will probably end up happening. But you also have Liam Combs, who has now had his second interview in Jacksonville. Supposedly that's almost a done deal. What's that?
They just came out and he said that he took his name out of the running for the Jacksonville head coach because he wants to stay in Tampa. So they're going to probably lock him up, give him a couple more bucks to stay in Tampa. But again, super important that you hold on to your coordinators if you see yourselves on this upward trajectory. If not, you're right back at square one again. And say, oh, you're not square one because you have all this talent, da, da, da. But you are, because it's an introduction of a whole other routine, right? Those things are super duper essential. And the McCarthy stuff, you're right. Maybe he goes to Jacksonville. Maybe he's just like, you know what? I'm taking a year off. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to see what comes down the line. And maybe I'll give some commentary on pick a betting website because they're everywhere nowadays.
Yeah. True. All right. As we get into the final minutes here, as we're getting ready to close out Martinez Company, for those who don't know, Dunkin' Dad is doing something original. And I applaud him for doing so. For those who kind of keep up, if you lived in Philly and you heard of the Arco Go Patrol, when we used to listen to it on KYW back in the day, and you would listen to the guy in the car talking about, it's backed up on 676, Broad Street, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So Dunkin' Dad is going to have a good spin on this. What's going to happen is he's going to take some time off, go to another peninsula somewhere. When he comes back, he's going to New Orleans, and he's bringing back the Arco Go Patrol, but it's going to be the Dunkin' Dad version. He'll be making stops along the way, talking to a couple of folks, and kind of almost talking in the car, but it'll make sense when the Super Bowl rolls around. So just think about Dunkin' on the go. So, and by the way, Dunkin' Donuts, if you guys are listening, yes, I know I mentioned Fresh Frosted Coffee, but I think it's going to be quite unique what you're going to be doing here in the next couple of weeks.
Like Dunkin' runs on Dunkin'.
There you go.
Wrap your head around that.
Yeah. We'll see what makes it happen.
No, dude, it's great. It'll be great. Lots of fun stuff coming up, and super excited to be part of the network. And like you said, make sure we hit it with all the right stuff, all the right content, all the right people, good conversations, and great. It's a great cornucopia. It's like the fruit of the loom back in the day, baby. Fits right. Fits right.
It sure is. And that's funny because we'll never see the Fruit Loom commercials anymore. As goofy as they may have been, but so many commercials, they just don't bother bringing back anymore. It stinks. Nope. Hopefully they'll get back.
We're simple people, man. We are simple people.
We are.
We like funny stuff. Just funny, normal stuff. Put a chicken suit on. We like it. We'll buy chicken from you.
Exactly.
Come on.
The one that I can't stand, listen, no offense, Liberty Mutual, but your commercials drive me absolutely bananas. I can't stand any of them. It drives me nuts. Joey B, by the way, says, Fruit of Loom, LOL, wow, old school Dunkin' Dad. Tidy Whities. Everybody knew who they were.
Oh, everybody had Tidy Whities. Oh, my goodness, man.
Oh, speaking of, before I sign off here, so we ended up going to Target. I thought it was the most interesting thing. When the guy walked up to me and Gaspam guy says, hang on for a second. Great show, guys. Sorry I didn't get a chance to call in maybe Friday. That's no problem. Appreciate you. But guy says to me, yo, OG, do you have an anal clock? I'm like, what? Are you really kidding me? Goes, what's up, OG? Yeah, do you have an anal clock? I'm like, oh, I get where the joke is.
Yeah.
So can you figure out exactly what he was saying?
Oh, myself?
Yeah.
You talking about the analog clocks?
There you go.
The old-fashioned analog clocks? Yeah.
Yeah, just sticking out the last two initials, and of course, trying to be funny. And you never really think about it for the many years that you look at the name of it. But he was just trying to be funny. I thought it was cute, but that's the way I'll end the show. Because
those little hands, man, constantly it's like, psh, yeah, yep.
Exactly. Plus, the ticking they went around. Some clocks were louder than others, depending. Like I used to stay at my grandmother's house. She used to have one, which used to drive me bananas because it would tick like worse than a cuckoo clock. But with that being said. Hold on. Joey B says, if a guy comes up to you at Target and he calls himself Gaspam Guy, ask about his anal clock's run. Oh, boy. But listen, thanks to Joey B, obviously Dunkin' Dad, not only for the comments and jumping on with me here. Beav, of course, coming up later on tonight from 6 to 7:30, right after this show at 4 o'clock. Will be the Drive with Q, my hermano Rich Quinones, from 4 to 6 p.m. And then closing out the night on the network, we'll be talking to Hoops, Coach Johnson, Coach Mack, Doc Riley. They have your NBA, G League, and the WNBA covered. So with that being said, thanks to I know Penguin and GMA is coming much earlier today as he had tuned in, but thanks to Gaspam Guy and everyone else. We'll be back on Friday, the next edition here of Martinez Company. And with that being said, thank you once again to Stuart. And as you guys had heard, David Ift is going to be the crew chief out there for City Garage Motorsports, and they are running car number 86, not car 85. We'll keep you posted on the socials. As Rick says, stay warm, everyone. Yes, I need you too, Rick, on tarmac out there. It is chilly down here in Tampa. But we appreciate everyone. Have yourselves a great day, and we will talk to you once again soon.